Alright, so here's a before on the leveling kit. The back is a little weighed down with stuff right now, so it doesn't look too unlevel, but you'll definitely see the difference when we add it. So here's in the front. And here's in the back. And when I get all the junk out of the back, I'll take a picture and add that in here so you can see. But let's get on it. Well, this side is in. Now that I have taught myself how to do it, I guess I can show you guys how to do it. And I was actually able to do it all just by compressing the spring. Didn't have to undo the shock, didn't have to undo the sway bar, nothing. Literally just the jack and the spring compressor, and I got it in. So I'll show you that here in a bit. So just for a little bit of comparison, I only have one side done. Here's this side, if you can see, and then here's this side. Got a little bit of a height difference, looks pretty good. All right, so this is what you're gonna wanna do. You're gonna wanna jack up, take your tire off first, obviously. Then you're gonna wanna jack up off of the axle as much as it'll go, so it's trying to compress that spring under its own body weight, almost like it's flexing out. This compressed a little bit better on its own on the other side, but now I got the leveling kit on that side already, obviously. So it's going a little bit different on this side. But you're gonna wanna get your spring compressor on, get it on there as tall as possible. And then obviously you gotta undo your bolts right there, and the one back there. And so undo those bolts first, and then tighten these spring compressors. And what you're kind of wanna go for is hopefully getting that to that bump stop spot right there as close as possible. So I'll show you that when I'm done. All right, we got it pretty compressed. We don't have great connection right there, so you really want to be careful with these things. These spring compressors I got off of Amazon for $19, and they're actually really long. It would be up to like right here. I cut them just so they would fit in here better, and because I only plan on using them on this project in the moment. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let down the jack. We're gonna set the axle on a jack stand, with the jack stand all the way down, and then we're gonna lift up from the frame right there. Just lift up on the body with the jack then. So let's do that. Okay, so fair warning, everything I'm doing right now is pretty sketchy. Those spring compressors are sketchy, and this block on the jack is sketchy, but it's working. Look, so see, I started lifting, I got the axle down on the jack stand, and then started jacking up from the frame rail right there, and see, now we're coming out. So you're gonna wanna be just kind of careful. We're just gonna we're just gonna let that sit just like that. Pull it out like that. All right, this is all we need. We got this out of here. So now you're gonna wanna get your leveling kit right here. Here's your plate. You're gonna put this on. Here, so I'll put this between the legs. You're gonna wanna put it on. Just like that. So that's what it's gonna look like. And you're obviously gonna put the bolts back on those two right there. And then I'll show you what to do after that. Okay, so that's all bolted on. That's ready to go back inside of that shock. So if you look in there, it's hard to see on the camera, but in person you'll be able to see it. You can tell the orientation of where it's supposed to go, a little teardrop shape. So right here I can see that there's where that little teardrop shape should go, right in there. So I'm gonna set this in there, kind of at the orientation I need, about like that. And then I'm gonna just tip the shock back over, exactly reverse of what I just did, and try and feed it in there. And if it doesn't go in, then I will raise the body some more, because I still have plenty of lift, obviously. And trust me, this shock, if you compress the spring enough correctly, that shock has plenty of down travel in it that you can get this on there. So you're gonna want, so what I like to do is before I put the shock down and everything, is I'll get it in there with the shock stood up, line these bolt holes up, grab my bolts, and just start them. Don't worry about the washers or nothing, just start them so this can't fall out of those bolts. And then you'll slowly let this truck, or let the car back onto those shocks. You'll see. I remembered the trick I did for the other side. So like I said, I instead of trying to go bottom first, I went top first. I got those bolts started so they at least stay, so it stays in there. And then I'm gonna lift up the shock and use a pry bar and just get the leverage to get that over top of there. So I did not tighten the spring compressors enough. You want them to be practically touching that bump stop with the rubber piece when you get them tightened. That's what I did on the other side, and it went a whole lot smoother. So this is still gonna work, it's just not gonna go as smooth as the other side. But let's get it on there. Okay, I wanna make it clear again. When you think you have it compressed enough, just go ahead and compress it some more until it hits that bump stop thing right there, because it is a lot less scary tightening it while it's still in the vehicle than it is while it's out. Okay, it's in there now. This one was a little harder, a little bit more scary, but again, if you listen to what I said and tighten it more than I did, it'll go a whole lot easier, because I had to tighten it quite a bit more. And you can see his spring's all lopsided and crazy, so that's scary looking, I know. So before you let those spring compressors loose, we're gonna do exactly what we did to put them on. We're gonna let this body down and put those springs on some weight, so they don't have so when we let them loose, they don't just go like instantly spring back. We want them to have a little bit of weight on them so they're not expanding as much. Okay, now we got it set down, and still it's on the jack stand. Now I feel comfortable to let these spring compressors off, and then we'll just jack it back up, put the tire on, and be good to go. And then obviously you got your washers and lock nuts that go on there, or lock washers that go on there. This one's gold because I lost one of the bolts on the other side, so I went to the store and I figured might as well make it a grade 8 bolt if I'm getting another bolt. But yeah, that's basically it. So it sounds harder than it actually is. If you do it right the first time, then it's really easy. Oh, see, that's why it's a little scary. These spring compressors, they're $19 on Amazon. They work fine for what I just did, but they're obviously very cheap. You can kind of see the bend in them. And I even took my portable bandsaw and it cut through them like nothing. I would have expected it to have a hard time cutting through these, but had no problem whatsoever. It's pretty cheap steel. But for what I'm using it for, it worked fine. But if you're gonna be doing this again in the future, these are probably just throwaways. I don't know how much more I'd want to use these things. But I'll take those off and show you what it looks like then. All right, after some persuasion, the spring compressors are off. So that's that part done. Spring is in there, ready to go. Just need to put those washers and lock nuts on there, front and back. And then put your tire back on, and there you go. She's leveled. Another good thing is to mention, always make sure you put your car in park and the e-brake on whenever you're working on it like this and lifting it up and stuff. That's the last thing you want, is it not being in park or the e-brake off, and then it rolling off your jack stands and messing up some more junk. Another good thing to probably mention is when you're doing something like this, pretend like you don't have jack stands as a backup. See that rotor right there? I don't care if there's jack stand on it or not, you still don't want to put your foot underneath there. It's kind of like a gun. You want to pretend like it's loaded. Because if you put your foot under there and say you didn't have a jack stand, then that's crushing your foot with all the weight of the car. And especially like with these springs and stuff, keep an eye out for your fingers think if that car fell off the jack stand, would your fingers be in a position where they would be smashed? That would not be fun. So be safe out there working on your stuff. All right, now it's done. Got the washer on there and the lock nut and the bolt all tightened down. Don't really worry about torque spec or nothing on this stuff. Just get it tight. I mean, if you work on stuff, you know what tight is. So now all it needs is a tire back on and she's ready to roll. All right, so there she is, finished. She's got a tiny bit of a cali lean to her. It's barely noticeable, but if you look close enough, you can tell. Just a little lower on the back, which that could be accounted for some of the junk I got in the back of it. I got some chains and stuff back there. But I kind of anticipated that. I'm gonna have a winch on the front of this thing, so I'm gonna be adding some weight to the front. So that'll probably even it out. And I have been toying with the idea of putting a spacer in the back also. And then maybe a lift on top of that. Right now, I'm sitting on no lift, except for the spacers, which we obviously just installed. But other than that, no lift, nothing done to it. She's sitting on 35s. She drives fine on the 35s without the lift. I really just wanted to get that leveled out because it looks a lot better. Even with a little bit of the cali lean, it looks a whole lot better than it did before, and gives the front end some more height for going up stuff. The front tires, the only rubbing issues I've had is going through big bumps and stuff. It rubs on the inner fender or on the fiberglass on both sides on the front, but turning it doesn't rub. You can flex out and it's perfectly fine. With that spacer now, I don't expect it to rub at all. It's got enough drop to it where it's gonna hit bump stops sooner, but you still have the same amount of travel. And then on the back, my tires are a little chewed up from rubbing this lip inside here. It only hits that lip if the axle is compressing at the same rate like this. If you're flexing back and forth, then those 35s tuck right into the fender wells. But yeah, if you're wanting to put 35s on a Land Cruiser, do it. As long as you're not too concerned about a little bit of rubbing on the back, which even if you take a hammer or something and bend that little lip, I bet it wouldn't be that bad. I've been meaning to do that, but I just haven't yet. But yeah, it clears 35s, no lift, and then if you're waiting to put a lift or a leveling kit on it, then it fits even better. Well, thank you guys for watching, and that was it. And also, if you want to check out my Instagram and TikTok, they're both under the same name, One Truck Life. Go check them out. And in case I forgot to say, these are the Metal Tech 2-inch spacers. That's all you really see from in there.